Hi folks, Guy here again. I've got a special interview I'm going to do with a good friend of mine, Joe Lindsey. You can see him on, you can talk to Joe on Facebook. He'd be happy to hear from you. And a lot of what I've learned, a lot of what I've shared on these YouTubes, I get from Joe. So I thought it would be appropriate for me I'd like to have an interview with him and ask him some provocative questions that might answer some questions from my viewers. So, bear with me. Let me introduce you to Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
I got some questions for you. Before we get started, Joe is a father of 4 grown kids. He's a songwriter and a poet in his own right, as well as everyone else who reads his stuff. And he's also an author, and he's led praise and worship for years in different congregations, different churches. So I have some questions to ask him, and the first question I'm going to ask is, when I first introduced you, Joe's never seen these questions, by the way. When I first introduced you to what I now believe, meaning Christ died for the whole world, all of mankind, do you remember at all what your first thoughts were about me sharing some of this stuff with you?
When you first brought up, you said something to the effect of, what if I told you that there was no hell? And I said, that would be nice. And so I went and I watched a few of the videos that you had, and it was basically, to me, it was food for thought, because with me it's truth at any cost, because that's where I am. If it's the truth and you have the truth, you don't have to be afraid of being sucked into any cults or being a Satanist or an atheist or anything. You can't be taken from something that God puts you in. So I was just interested. I thought it was, like you said, provocative. I thought that was controversial and provocative, so I'll look into it. And I looked into it, and it's been pretty amazing.
Okay.
It's been pretty amazing.
But since you've known us for quite a long time now, did you see a change in our lives since our beliefs have changed?
I noticed almost right off a freedom, like a weight had been lifted. Not just the idea of oh goody, there's no hell, now we can do anything we want, but an idea of the true character of God and an understanding of God, of a God that you can love, because His justice is different than what we've been taught, in that His justice makes things back the way they were supposed to be. Instead of doing away with something undesirable, He changes it with love, and I started to see that in your lives. That's the fruit. Mm-hmm. I look for fruit in anything. People come up with all kinds of different concepts and things that would probably be kind of fun to do and different and all that. I didn't get the in my heart the oh no, here we go thing when you brought this up. I thought, that's very possible, because I know that what had been done to the Bible was suspect. Mm-hmm. And I had always wanted, just before you brought this up, I'd wanted, there's something like 450 different translations, English translations of the Bible, and over 2,300 Christian denominations alone. And I thought, I wonder what the original church believed, and that was the journey I was on when you brought this up. And then I started to see the fruit in your lives that was genuine joy, not just happy once in a while, but genuine joy. And genuine joy and a paradigm shift, all this, you don't do that to yourself.
That's right.
God does that to you. So,
do you call yourself, or do you consider yourself a Christian? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Well, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
They were first called Christians in Antioch. It was an accusation. It was a put down. It meant little Christ, because they went about doing the things that Jesus did. Whether I call myself I think if someone else calls you something, you probably are. But on that note, to relate it to what Christians are and what they believe in evangelical Christianity, which is basically the most popular religion of the day, I don't believe myself to be that. I believe myself to be someone that God is working with, and that God has salvaged and is making new and has good plans for. I don't know how to label that. I'm not a Christian in the formal sense of being able to sit down under the teachings that are going on now and believe everything they say and adhere to what they say. I don't adhere to a lot of what Christianity has to sell. I'm a seeker of truth and somebody that God's working with.
Okay, what grief have you received from other Christians because of the paradigm shift that you said you've experienced?
I'll need a drink of coffee before I start on this one. We're not alone in here, by the way. The dogs are watching us and our wives are watching. I've been called a heretic and an agent of Satan. You know, it's a knee-jerk reaction, though. I just feel, and don't even pity them or feel sorry for them so much as I just feel lonely for them, because they don't have me anymore. They don't have someone who loved them, and I don't love unconditionally like God does. But I was starting to show some folks fruit in my life from the beliefs, and they're saying the worship is just awesome. And so I finally just started to share why I'm so joyous and happy and upbeat, and you have such wisdom. And all. I started to share why, and that put the kibosh on a lot of stuff. That I was a deacon. I stepped down from being a deacon because of something that happened that I thought was unjust, but it was something that was eventually going to happen anyway, because I couldn't. Fellowship is a bunch of guys in the same boat. I couldn't be in the same boat anymore. I was on a journey that wasn't going somewhere other than where they were going, but I was on a journey of learning where I'm going and how the things that I do in this life affect my eventual destination. Because I think our destination is being formed by the things that we do, because, and I tried to explain this, but it wasn't received. What we do in this life, Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. Well, as he's preparing, he's seeing what we do and what we want. And I believe that the walk that I'm walking out is eventually preparing the custom-made destination for me. And I'm not going the same way a lot of people are going. We're all going to wind up eventually in the same place. But you can't fellowship with them in that. You can't fellowship with them unless they want to know. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to know. Some of them, they've been indoctrinated. Their orthodoxy is something that they believe that they hold in their heart, and I can't fault them for that. It's something that God has to change, and until he does, the fellowship isn't there. You're suspect. I'm suspect.
That was my dog shaking his head and hearing his ears flapping. Even though you, as well as Kathy and I, we no longer go to an organized church. Right. You've answered part of it already, but what is your view of the church system now? Is there anything you could tell my viewers? Because I personally I still see the good. I still see the good within the organized church, where a lot of people who no longer go to an organized church, we find such great fault. And don't get me wrong, we're not blinded to the fact that there's a lot of fault, but none of us can point the finger because we're all at fault to some degree. So what is your view now on the church system, where it stands?
I think the church system is something that it has been from day one in the upper room. I think it's something that has gone through, it's like people. We go through things that, I don't like to use the word evolving, but things do evolve. Some things do evolve. we've evolved from the Model A to the Ferrari. That's a form of evolution. But I think the church is evolving. I think that now with the internet being what it is, that folks have more access to more. And I'm not going to say more access to more truth. They do have more access to more truth, and the truth. They have access to a lot of garbage too. But it's like I said, if you have the truth, don't fear. The truth takes the fear out of you. Love, perfect love casts out fear, and perfect love has the truth embedded in it. So the church system today, the church is supposed to be a body of people. The church system, I believe, is more involved with politics. I never did care for politics of guiding people for someone else's end, a few men guiding a whole group of people for their own ends, or even whether they are sincere or not. Sincerely wanting the best in their lives, setting up a hierarchy of someone over another. I think the church system is refining itself that way. Small groups and all are becoming more prevalent because people need to be ministered to personally. And but as far as the church system and the politics therein, they're just like I am. They got a lot of learning to do. They got a lot of things to learn and things to refine before it can be effective. Is not, the church is set up. There are a lot of new churches that have a lot of good worship, a lot of good teaching, a lot of good fellowship and all like that. For numbers, to me, a church is like a clubhouse, but the church people that sit down and minister to each other one-on-one and talk about when we go to fellowship. When we go to fellowship up here is different than when we went to fellowship in a clubhouse. The fellowship in the clubhouse was about jobs, sports, this and that. I would try to bring up scripture and things of the Lord, things that meant something to my life. I'm just a little hungrier now because I have an awesome love and joy that some can't relate to. So I think, and so I wasn't received, and the church, that kind of a church setting never did work. There's too many people with too much going on at one time. And I think the church is refining itself. But as far as a church system, I think that is going to be quickly a thing of the past. I think the more people hunger for knowledge, the more they're going to get in small groups and they're going to learn.
Well, Joe, you're the one that introduced the thought that God is the one, that the best seed, or one of the seeds that God will actually use, that plants in us, is the seed of doubt. You're the one that taught me that. And that's pretty much a theme that I use for all of my YouTube videos. And what is the response when you tried to share that at the time you were still going to church? What was the response you got from your pastor when you tried to share that concept with him? What was the response?
That's why I laughed. It was like a deer in the headlights. I said, sometimes the seed of doubt is the most precious seed that can be planted in a believer's life. And it was like, what? That smacks of hath God said. And I said, exactly. Hath God said. Eve was set up. Eve was confronted, and Eve had the perfect opportunity to tell Satan exactly what God said. Satan knew what God said. Eve knew what God said. But when you have a seed of doubt, and that's totally unrelated to what I was trying to relate to the guy. Any seed of doubt is you need to get back and scratch back past what man has done to the Bible in order to find out what the intent of a scripture is. Like we were talking about earlier, the culture, the people spoken to, the whole setting plays into it. And some things have been taken as an order of control and manipulation. Scripture has been taken in order to make these clubhouses work. And so if you doubt, then you need to go and find out for yourself. And going and finding out for yourself makes that personal, makes that you and God. That makes you someone who doesn't say, I believe it because my pastor told me so, and I trust him. Well, God bless his heart, but you need to trust God. Christ died so that there would be no one between you and God. Some folks say Christ died to put himself between you and God so he could be heard, but Christ is God. He died to eliminate the middleman. He rose from the dead to eliminate the middleman. And not only for that, but to make his original intent perfected in your heart. And it's an ongoing thing. God grows trees. He doesn't grow weeds that just spring up and die. He grows trees. And trees are strong, and they withstand things. And without searching and without testing these doubts, that I had a whole lot more doubt without searching than I do now. There were some things would be said from the pulpit, and I go, it don't sound like God. It don't sound like love. And then, of course, through seminary teaching and all that, there's a justification of everything, which still, it's like I said, it still leaves too many loose ends. And once you understand and you begin to embrace truth and the simplistic practicality of the way scriptures are written, they're like cogs that mesh together and things roll right now, instead of a cog being missing or something slipping. And it's like I was telling you earlier, I don't have third gear. I have to go from second to fourth because that gear isn't there. Well, it's there now. And unless you have, if you've sat under teaching and just go on and on and on with whatever, and just believe whatever and just go on as a dumb sheep, and never do your own searching, and never have a seed of doubt, you're missing out.
That's right.
You're missing out on a big blessing by finding things out for yourself and having God show you.
Okay, and as the last and final question for this segment of YouTube video, this is going to be kind of a bizarre question. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it.
I've known you a long time.
Okay. What do you think about the testimonies of people who claim they've gone to hell? And that's a tough one. I know you didn't see any of these questions before I threw them at you.
No, and I have seen some of the testimonies. I don't know. For someone to say, it's the same, I feel the same way about those as the testimonies of people who said they've been to heaven. There's a movie out now about a kid who went to heaven and told his dad all that, where someone else goes or what they've done or what they've experienced, and whether it was true and whether it was real fire or demons or maybe it was something that, or whether it was something that they imagined, or whether whatever it was, I was going to say that's between them and God, but that's something that they experience, that they honestly believe. But my studies and all have shown me that if there is a place of torment, I think we create a lot of those ourselves. And I don't know if they were created from their own imaginations or what. I don't know what to think about someone's testimony of somewhere that they've been. It's like, you can come back and tell me how good Hawaii was, but I've never been there.
Yeah.
And you say you've experienced, you can tell me a dream you've had that was just so real, and I wasn't there. So, but as far as purging, torment, all that kind of thing, if there is a place, and I believe that scripturally, when we're done here, if we move on to some place, some of us, where some stuff has to be purged out, refined, or whatever, there's a reason for it. But I'm like David. David said, David was given a choice. I'll either turn you over to your enemies, or you can let me deal with you for, I don't know, months or whatever it was. He said, I'll go with God, because God's merciful. And if there's a purging fire, our God is a consuming fire. If there's a purging fire, God's in it. And if I don't trust him before I go in it, I'll trust him when I come out.
That's right.
And by the time I'm out, and I can't imagine anything